It's very interesting how God raises up unique people to fulfill His word or to make a proclamation. In that period of time when Israel was down in Babylon, the king of that territory, Babylon, was a man by the name of Nebuchadnezzar, a wicked king, as one could understand in the capture and the burning of the city of Jerusalem. This man Nebuchadnezzar had a dream. And he dreamed a dream that, when interpreted, showed that over 30 centuries of history would be unfolded within this dream. True, that dream was beginning to start when it was interpreted from Babylon itself to the actual end of the period of the Great Tribulation. Well, that dream he would not share with anybody except someone who was able to interpret it. And God's man was there, a young man by the name of Daniel. And in chapter 2, Daniel said to that king Nebuchadnezzar, "This is what you dreamed. You dreamed an awesome statue, head of gold, chest and arms of silver, belly and thighs of bronze, that stood on massive legs of iron, and feet that were mixed with both iron and clay, when suddenly there came a stone. That stone was of supernatural origin and exploded, striking the feet of this statue, crushing the image to power. And then the stone itself became a great mountain which filled the whole earth." Then Daniel said, "That's what you dreamed." Then God revealed to Daniel each element that was represented in that image. Each of those elements, God began to reveal that represented a slash of history that had not yet been lived. Only God could do that, church. Only God who could see the end from the beginning, reveal not only a dream that he did not dream himself, Daniel the prophet, but that God revealed to him the dream and the details, how that would unfold and actually become the chapters of history for 25 or 30 centuries of time. So he started. He said to Nebuchadnezzar, and therefore to all of us, he said that gold head of that image was, by the way, I just got to stop and remind you, maybe you've forgotten that in this dream, or at this time in history, what God was really doing was making an announcement, a very striking announcement, and that is the Jews, God's chosen people, had been his timepiece, his mouthpiece, God's voice, God's trumpet, to call other nations to worship Jehovah God. Now God, by this dream and the interpretation thereof, God was making an announcement that he was going to give control of the promised land, the land then called Canaan, and the city of the holy city Jerusalem, and give it into the hands of the non-Israelites, known of course as the Gentiles. And that this period of time would go for a number of years. And when Jesus came on the scene in his Olivet Discourse in 24th chapter of the book of Matthew and the 21st chapter of the book of Luke, I believe it is, in the 24th verse, Jesus called this period of time, look at me, and I'll use my fingers, this period of time from the capture of these people, the Jews, into Babylon to the end of the battle of Armageddon, a whole period of time of those 3,000 years. God, who sees the end from the beginning, revealed to that and made the announcement that the Jews would no longer be in the seat of authority and control. He was going to give it to the Gentiles. So then he started with the head. He says, Nebuchadnezzar, this head of gold represents your own kingdom, the kingdom of Babylon. And then, of course, he moved on down and says that the chest and the arms of silver was going to then come into power, representing the Medes and the Persians. Very powerful country. I wished I had 3 or 4 minutes just to describe. Silver is not as valuable as gold, but the fact is that it wasn't quite as polished a kingdom, but the record shows that the Medo-Persian that had overcome Babylon and conquered it was even more powerful and stronger than the people of Babylon. Then Daniel says the bronze of the belly and the thighs represents the Grecian Empire under Alexander the Great. What a conqueror he was. He had control of all of Europe, even to Egypt, including India, and including what we call today the Promised Land. That is the land of Palestine. Then Daniel said to Nebuchadnezzar and to us, those 2 legs represent the Roman Empire. And those 2 legs are going to represent the Eastern and the Western empires of the Roman Empire itself. If you're a student of history and you read with excitement of those days of the Roman Empire and their power, you remember such phrases, especially by Josephus the historian. He would say, the iron legions of Rome. Or an expression you often would find, the armies of iron strength, referring to this particular time. Then Daniel says to Nebuchadnezzar and to us that those feet at the bottom of those 2 legs were going to be iron mixed with clay. There is the power of Rome. There is that authority of that power. There's the strength of iron. But there's going to be a mixture of clay that crumbles and will not mix with iron. Then on those 2 feet are 10 toes, and those 10 toes are going to be the last Gentile empire of the end of time before Jesus comes to reign upon this earth. Now, I want to say that again so that you can grasp it. Those 10 toes of those 2 feet mixed with iron and clay are going to be the last empire of the Gentiles before Jesus Christ comes back to reign upon this earth. And it would be in the form of the revived Roman Empire. Out of that comes forth the world ruler. The world ruler would become the Antichrist, and being Antichrist, he is anti-Israel, and therefore leads the nations of the world to the final battle that is supposed to end all other battles, a battle against Jerusalem and try to destroy Jerusalem. And then comes that stone, and that stone that he had just described represented Christ. Christ's return, who would smash the kingdoms and the governments of the world, and then would establish Christ's kingdom in the city of Jerusalem as the capital and beginning the millennial reign. All of that was in that particular prognostication of the events that were going to come for 25 centuries to 30 centuries, 3,000 years in advance.